Breaker, breaker into the black. This is Long Haul Preacher and ain't going back.
Howdy all, great to have you back this week. I'm going to quickly try to rattle this out and hope the program doesn't crash. As I will point out at the end of this podcast, there is a crowdfunding campaign to pay for the replacement for the computer. Please consider it if you like my podcast and share with others. Thank you. Now, as the pandemic begins to rage again, some have been asking my wife and I why we decided to start off our 5-year-old into a virtual school instead of a real school for the upcoming school year. Honestly, we already had an issue with public schools to begin with, but are not exactly rich. We couldn't send her to a Christian school if we wanted to. It just plain costs too much. So we had a choice between Freya going to a public school and Freya going to a virtual public school. Well, the pandemic just underscored one thing we could not deny. If the rest of the schools had a high chance of starting off virtual anyway, why bother even trying for in school, right? Everything is becoming remote, from zoos and museums to delivery from stores and even remote services from churches. While so many are finding this horrible and others are even joking about the torture of being parents of kids trapped at home, this is an opportunity, not a trap. Here's a few examples of how we've taken to using this time and plan on continuing in the near future as we ride out this pandemic storm. First, there was the Girl Scouts. I believe I talked about this before. They did 8 weeks of remote meetings to make up for a lack of meetings during the last few months, and this has Freya really excited about being a Girl Scout now and in the future. I even got to do my first Girl Scout meeting as a solar system ambassador, remotely, over Zoom, and I'm very excited to be able to share my excitement about space exploration and astronomy. This is your chance as parents to both get your kids excited about things you are excited about and to get yourself excited about things that they are excited about. And yes, Dad, if it means dressing up like Elsa and dancing and singing with your daughters, well, all I can say is, good luck. You're welcome. Second, let's talk about school. Having attempted to help 2 teenage boys through school for a time, I can tell you one thing, this ain't the school I grew up with. Common Core is common confusion. Grading is based on trying rather than success. And here's the real shocker, any parents that actually want to be involved in the academic lives of their children are considered strange, if not a nuisance. Frankly, I would rather be a nuisance. I would rather know what they are learning and try to help where I can so that they are prepared for their future. Now, someone is going to ask the question, so let me just nip this one in the bud right now. What about my own childhood, right? Well, I was a nerd. I admit it, a geek, an academic, right? I was also a loner and probably considered pretty strange. My parents, both Japanese, had in mind for me to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, towards a college degree, believing it would be absolutely necessary. And this meant skipping the electives I would have loved, like electronics. Yes, I know it would have been a good thing to go into for, say, electronics engineering. But remember, Japanese parents, business is where the money is made. Looking back, I cannot honestly say if it matters one way or the other, at least not with any certainty. After all, God had another plan all along, one that was not mine and was not theirs. Still, isn't it better to not leave to almost random chance the future of our children? I cannot help but feel completely and irrevocably responsible for Freya's moral, religious, and yes, academic upbringing. And if the schools will not do what they need to do, I, as Freya's father, should, instead of kicking and screaming about, like so many parents do. I may have chosen on my own, without the pandemic, to bring home Freya's schooling. The pandemic just gave a bit more of a nudge than mere responsibility would do. Now lastly, with museums and zoos and such only partly opening and the pandemic continuing, I would like to just point out that video conferencing with friends and family is getting more and more stressful for our kids, not less. I am not condoning getting together with others, but here is a bit of advice. Do something with your kids for others, whether it be for friends or family, or for strangers. We've talked about a lot of things. Obviously, making cookies, for example, for the local fire department or police department is not the greatest idea with the pandemic on, but might not be a bad idea for an aunt or an uncle, a cousin, school friends, so on. Deliver them with a call, a drop-off, and a wave from the curb. Give your kids a few minutes to talk with them from afar. Grandparents would especially be grateful for this. Kids like Freya could paint a rock for them, or could pick flowers, or you guys could pick up flowers from the store to deliver. Face-to-face time cannot be made up for with FaceTime or Zoom time. Get my picture? Okay. Don't want to make this long, so that's it until next week. And yes, I know this is coming slow. In fact, I need to rattle off a few for August as well and get them scheduled up for release or something. This computer is slowly failing, and I'm hoping this recording is still recording. Please like, share, and while you're at it, take the time to look at the crowdfunding campaign to help pay for the new computer. It would be greatly appreciated. This has been a podcast by At His Feet PBC, doing business as Long Haul Preacher, copyright 2020, all rights reserved. All I ask is that you ask. Before publishing any part of this in your own works, I am a holder of a master's in counseling and divinity, making me a bit of both Christian counselor and pastoral counselor in one. If you have any questions about this or any podcast, or are looking for permission to republish material from it, just email me at info@longhaulpreacher.space. Hey, thanks for joining me, y'all. See you next week. God bless.